$1,000 or better. That's where that savings is coming from.
Okay.
That's why we did that.
Thank you.
But we're going to have extra security on the weekends because even though pedestrians can pass through, there's going to be construction on both sides of the. And people aren't reading the signs. It says no trespassing. It's obviously a construction zone, but we've found many a person and much evidence over the fence that kids were in there with beer cans or. We actually caught a couple walking their dog on in the new construction zone over the weekend. It's like, what are you doing here? Mm-hmm. Well, we went around to the beach and up the rocks. And
Are they going to be working on that Saturday with people then? Okay, so they're just shut down
but still,
after
there's
Friday.
Fence there. We just got to make sure people
Yeah.
stay out of it. We made sure we fixed the cameras so that dispatch could be watching the construction zone over the summer too, to keep people out there. And we've instructed the police to enforce that no trespassing area diligently.
Okay.
And be on it. It's important. There's a safety factor. There's a liability factor.
Right.
That's the short version tonight. Any more boardwalk questions, Lisa?
I won't ask you. I'll ask you later.
Okay.
Any other questions?
It's on budget. You are the Board of Finance. There was some questions in the community about it not being on budget. It's on budget. Not on time, but it's on budget.
Thank you. Moving along, Anna, Finance Director report.
Yes. Good evening. So I don't know if you have any questions on the materials that were mailed to you. The monthly highlight summary of year-to-date information and revenues and expenditures throughout the budget that we received during the month of April that were in excess of $10,000. We did receive the second share of our education cost sharing, approximately $3.5 million in the month of April. Looking at, does anyone have any questions?
What's the LOSIP expenditure?
That was a portion for the generator that we're having installed here at the town hall.
So is some of that grant money and then we're matching it? Is that what that means?
No. When we receive the LOSIP grant, it's a specified dollar amount every year, and we determine projects that we want that qualify for use in the grant.
Oh, all right. So we're just taking receipt of the grant money and spending it on that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Does anyone else have questions?
The sewer assessment on the revenue that's going to go over to the water and sewer, right?
That actually came in from the sewer assessment fund.
Okay, so that's going to go.
That's paid to us to
That's
then
paid
use
to
for the
us.
bond payments, right?
That's
Oh,
to
right,
defray the
right,
impact
right,
of the
yeah.
bond payments.
Yep.
Do you have any areas of concern you want to bring to our attention?
Well, first I wanted to mention that in reviewing the revenues and where I expect we'll be at the end of the year, on the revenue side, we applied a total of $896,000 of fund balance for the budget. $750 of it was to balance the budget, and then we did the special appropriation of $146,000. So looking at revenues where we are today and where I'm estimating we'll be at the end of June, I expect that we're going to use approximately $355,000 of that applied fund balance, which means
Applied
that
fund balance of $896.
correct. So that
Okay.
means that we've had some
Hits.
good revenues come in for about $555,000. A few of them that stand out that were above our projections. The pilot from the state-owned property, we had projected $933,000, and they trued us up somewhat for the construction that was done at the National Guard facility. So we actually received $1,028,000. So that was about $95,000 more than we projected. And then building permits,
Mhm.
as you all know, that's been booming for us. And we originally projected about 345,000, and we've received 442,000 to date. And my estimate is that we'll receive approximately 487, possibly 500,000. So about 140,000 or so above projected. And then we also had the other large one, if you will, is Board of Education tuition. The original projection was $2.8 million, and it looks like we're going to receive a little over $3 million. So there's a surplus of about 180,000 from what we originally projected. So those are the large items that are, a contributing factor for why we won't need to use 100% of that applied fund balance in this year's budget. On the expense side, there are several accounts that are before you this evening as far as where additional funding is needed. When I had gone through the budget, I came up with approximately $140,000 that I identified where we're going to have shortfalls, and we're taking care of some of them this evening. But on the other side, I identified approximately $420,000 in budgets that we would have excess funds that we would be able to move over to these accounts where we have the expected shortfalls. The majority of it is from the debt service area, because when we put together the budget in coordination with the state, I had requested of them what I needed to put in the budget to deal with the maturity and the going from the interim funding obligation to the permanent funding obligation, and budgeted accordingly. At the end of the day, when we completed the project, we did not use 100% of what was made available to us for the project. The good thing is we came in under budget. So because of that, there were some excess funds in those accounts, and then there was another account which is relative to the refunding that we did this year. So
Now, that excess, is that what's being applied against the designated fund? The balance, the 350?
No, those are budgeted amounts, and so what I was saying is we
I
have
see.
about 140 that I was looking, and I found where we're going to have some, shortfalls. So I identified some sources of funds so that I had a comfort level that we were going to be able to take care of those
Within the budget?
within the budget. Yes.
Very good.
Within the budget. And of that 420, there's part of it is the $23,000 balance that we still have in the contingency account that we budgeted for. So just kind of wanted to go over those items with you.
You're not touching the contingency budget at all in these transfer
I do not believe so.
requests this evening,
No,
right?
no.
It's mostly from debt service.
Because
So-
they were larger amounts, so I just
Right.
went to some place where I would just have to deal with one account rather than multiple.
So we'll still have that large number of 23,000 after the next 2 months
Yes.
contingency.
But did you project out for the end of the year with the overtime usage?
I
on your
did,
sheet
I
so
did,
that-
I did,
oh,
yes. I looked at, I look at, okay, how is it running on a week-to-week basis, a month-to-month basis, look at how it ran last year to kind of see, to do the best that we could with making projections.
So then, all in all, what do you expect to give back at the end of the year from the town?
You know what, somewhere between, let's say, 300 to 500,000.
Okay?
I know that short-term money we did on the gas station, is that planned to roll into the bond then? Are we bonding that, or?
Well, actually, we did short-term notes, and you can roll short-term notes over up to 10 years before permanently bonding them. The criteria is that in year 3, you would have to make a 20% principal pay down on the original amount, which is $740,000. At this time, as I understand it, we are still working on whether or not it makes sense for the town to move forward with this. So at this point, I would say the plan is we will be rolling those notes over. We will not be permanently bonding them, we're just gonna roll them over for another year.
So you're not really gonna be paying the interest payment then?
We have to pay interest on them.
'Cause we're in the
On the
third
short,
year.
Right.
no, we're in year one. This is the first time actually in July of last year, 2014, it was the first time that we, when we went to market, based on what was going on at the time, there was some thoughts that the deal would come to fruition. And so in order to have cash to make the transaction, we did temporary borrowing on it. However, it hasn't come to fruition yet, and so we would need to roll the notes over for another year.
So the rate on the short term though is what? Point?
They're under 1%.
All right.
But they are starting to, to
Right.
creep up a little bit
Okay.
in the municipal marketplace.
All right.
Is that
No, that's
deci-
fine.
Does that decision have to be July 1st? Or we talked about it in the last couple hours, the last couple days, but when do we need a final answer whether we should roll that over or not? Because things are moving on that rather quickly.
Well, we're working on putting the deal together as,
Rather
we start
quickly.
planning.
Yeah.
We're starting to plan now for what's going to take place in July, because there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that needs to be accomplished.
So 30 days from now is June 13th.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a go or no on June 13th, would it be too late? Could I tell you, cancel this, or,
The only
have
way-
the check ready?
The only way that
Give your check.
we would cancel it is if we said, no, we don't want to do
That's
the
what I mean.
project. And
Right.
so we'll just, we won't roll the notes over, we'll just,
It wouldn't be too late on
How close can
June
you get to the
13th.
deadline before?
That's,
it would be the third week in
Okay.
June when we have the board.
But if you roll it, is there a prepayment penalty within that, or are you just rolling it at 75 basis points?
We just, when they mature, when we go to market in July, and when they mature, we're gonna roll them over. We're gonna, continue them for one more year.
All right, but if you decide 2 months into the year,
You have to, you
Okay.
have them
We
for
own
the
it for the year.
We own it
okay,
for the year.
all right, that's fine. But at 75 basis points, it's not. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Anna.
I didn't know, do you have a question, Camille?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, and then, the other thing that, the other issue that I wanted to discuss with you again is, our health insurance situation. So I actually gave you, some worksheets before the meeting this evening. If you wanna look at the, legal size worksheet. As you know, in the last several years, we've been fortunate with the claims in our plan, which is what drives the cost on a year-to-year basis. And during this fiscal year, we're having a bad year. There's no other way to say it. So what I'm showing here is back to fiscal year ending 6/30/11, and there are 3 columns in each of the years for each month. Claims, fees. The fees are the administrative fees that we pay a third party to administer the plan for us, as well as for the individual stop-loss insurance that we have on the plan, and the total amount for the year. And then on the bottom, what I did is I totaled cumulative month to date through April, so that you could see the difference in our prior years. So for example, in the current year, through April, our claims have been $6.9 million. Last year, they were, through April, $5.6 million. So this year, year to date, we have close to $1.3 million more in claims that we're paying. So, you do this exercise for all of the years. You'll note in fiscal year ending 6/30/11 through April, we had $5.1 million in claims. And if you look in the year 6/30/12, you'll notice we had $4.8 million in claims. So the cost of our plan actually decreased because, and that's, been the trend for us. And if you'll notice, in that fiscal year, year to date, all year, was less than we had paid the prior year. Then in the following fiscal year, 6/30/13, everything we gained, we lost, because you can see the claims went up. And again, 6/30/15, we had a few months where we had less claims year to date, but we did have more. So this is just to kind of show you that.
So in essence, with the claims totals right now, with 2 months to go, it's still higher
Well, and
than
that's
the previous year to date, and previous year to that, pretty much all the way through, and you still have 2 months.
And here's the other thing. When we did the renewal for the current fiscal year, the projection was that our total claims for this year would be $7,086,000. So you can see at the end of April, we're just about there. So claims for May and June are going to dip into the fund balance that we have built up in that fund.
How much is that?
Which is about $2 million.
It's $2.5 million.
Because your other sheet shows that being.
It does. So first I just kind of wanted to go over the claims situation with you. And then the next thing, there's a worksheet, and at the top, notice that it's Town of East Lyme Health Insurance Cost Analysis. And so what this shows, well, there's another piece. In February, when we were building the budget, we were provided with a renewal rate of 12.2%. Subsequent to that, in the month of April, they came back to us and said 12.2% isn't going to be enough. Realistically, you need a 26% increase to cover your claims for next fiscal year. And so, we're at the end of the budget process, and we get this information.
And here go, that's.
Now, if you look at the claims worksheet again, if you'll notice, when they provide us with a renewal document, they're using what they call a rolling 12 months of claims. So as you move further along in your fiscal year and you get, continue your claims, you can see how they're going. In previous years, if you recall, during the budget process, we'll start with a higher number, and by the time we're ready to finish the budget, they'll say, oh, you can reduce that number, because when they looked at the rolling 12 months, claims were, on a downward scale. But if you look at like November, December, January, February, that's when we started to have some larger, consistent peaks. So when they redid the renewal for us in April, that's why they show that type of a change for us. March and April did come down a bit. So far, through today, they've taken $293,000 in claims, and we still have half the month to go. So, probably looking at another $600,000 or so month this month. So with this other sheet that I was going to start discussing with you, what it shows is each of our groups. It identifies the number of contracts we have within the group, and then I show for the current fiscal year what the total cost for all those plans is. Then I show in the next column what the 12.2% cost would be. And then the next column over shows the increase from this year's amount. And then I show the next column is the 26% and what the increase. So we would be going from about $153,000 to $475,000. In the middle section, you can see it identifies the library, water and sewer, depending on what employees you are or what plan you have. So you're either in the PPO plan or the HSA plan. That part of the numbers that are represented on the top, water and sewer and the library pay. So then the bottom part, I take, I'm estimating based on the contract obligations, what we're gonna be taking from, what the employee's contribution to that renewal will be. So, if you look for a 12.2% renewal, the net town amount the town would be responsible for is approximately $1,278,000. And at the 26% renewal, it would be $1.5 million. So that's just like the numbers out there. And then the last sheet is just taking a look at fund balance in the fund.
Just so that I understand this completely, based on the rolling 12 months,
Mhm.
the insurance company came to you last month in April and said, your premium is going to be increased by 26%. So that is the column, that is the real number that we have to look at for this coming,
That's correct.
for
That's correct.
15-16.
Yes.
So if I'm reading your chart correctly, we're almost $200,000 under budget.
That's correct.
Okay.
Do we look at other companies? This is as good
This
as
is
it
the
gets.
number, yeah.
We looked at Anthem to go back
Do you know
to
anything
Anthem.
about insurance?
Not about health insurance, unfortunately. It would have been helpful in this job. We did look at Anthem as well. We did
It's
a
good
cost
on TV.
analysis. We had Anthem. We've made the switch to Aetna. It's not an Aetna Anthem issue. It's just the number of claims because we're self-insured. These are the claims that are coming in. And we even compared, what would Aetna pay per claim versus Anthem, and actually we're doing better with Anthem. We saved money when we switched to Anthem, and we. You're right. I did mean that. Wish they started with different letters. We saved money when we switched to Aetna a year ago, and we continue to save money as compared to Anthem. We did look at that. It's the first thing that I thought of is compare.
How about the Board of Ed budget for health insurance? Are they in this similar boat?
Well, similar in that they have 75% of the health insurance customers, employees, come from the Board of Ed side. So the severity of their budget, what this is going to do to their budget is
And we're
this
not
t-
looking
this
at
times
their
3.
numbers here.
I know, just the town
Right,
side.
so I'm just saying that this will be
Yes.
more good news once we,
Devastating.
Does the Board of Ed have a contingency account for health, like we do?
Well, we share that, right?
oh, God.
So we're all coming from the same pool, fine. That's just-
Hmm?
Do they have a separate contingency fund?
Dismal.
Within their general
Yes.
fund budget?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't think so.
I don't have an answer for that, really.
Okay.
I
I'm
don't
not
think
sure.
so. They keep on looking at ours because it's still one
It's one,
policy.
yeah, it's one policy,
You
one
know.
thought. So it probably is,
Mm.
that fund balance would be for them too. Okay.
Does the evaluation of healthcare coverage fall to one person, or is there a team of people that get together that kind of investigate and negotiate going forward?
Are you talking about what carrier we use?
No, I'm talking about who actually does the negotiations with the insurance companies. Who's
Agent.
the one that actually signs the contract?
Who represents the town?
Yeah.
Your agent, right?
Okay, well,
You-
So
here's,
is it just you, Mark, or is
Well, I
there?
sign all contracts authorized by.
But is there a team of people that get together to address the healthcare issue every year?
It's the person
Well,
that's collecting the
here's-
fees.
okay, so here's the process we went through. The benefits consultant that we use, Brown and Brown, when we did the RFP to solicit bids to determine whether we stay with Anthem or move to another provider, they did the RFP for us and accepted the bids and then provided us, meaning the town and the Board of Education, with an analysis of the bids. And then the benefits consultant made arrangements to have the companies come in and make presentations, and at the presentations were the benefits consultant along with First Selectman Formica, Dr. Lombardo, Don Meltebager, and myself. And so we interviewed the insurance companies, and Aetna was the apparent low bidder, and based upon the Q&A, it was felt that Aetna would be a better bang for the buck here in East Lyme. As you well know, it took us a year to make the transition from Anthem to Aetna. The unions, when we went to the unions, it was quite the process. It was long and painful, but we did get through it and made the conversion on July 1st of 2014. The contract that we entered into with Aetna was for a 3-year deal, and in the 3-year deal they have held the administrative fees the same. So that's the part, there will be no increase, and there was actually a decrease. If you look at, again, back to the legal sheet, if you look in the column that's titled fees, last year our fees were over $800,000, and this year they'll come in the $670,000 range. So, there was a real true savings in the fees, and they agreed to hold those fees for 3
So their fees aren't
consecutive
based
years.
on the total amount of claims. They have,
Yeah, the one part of the fee structure that they could not guarantee was the premium for the stop-loss insurance. They actually, as I understand it, bid that out every year. But that's the insurance that we have. We have individual stop-loss insurance, which is for any claim that exceeds $125,000. That's all we're responsible for. Anything above that point, that stop-loss insurance kicks in for us. We do not have aggregate stop-loss insurance. Even this year, with the amount that we're going over our projected claims, you need to go over that by 20%. Once you exceed 20%, then the aggregate stop-loss would kick in. So if we look at the fund balance sheet, then you can kind of see how that works. So I don't know, but do you have any more questions?
yes. Anna,
Sure.
So the adjusted fund balance that we have left, 1 million.
Oh, I'm going to review that sheet next.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I'll answer your questions.
That doesn't count the Board of Ed
Okay.
need.
It does. So
Okay, good.
let's talk about that. And
Steve?
If I look at the fee column for 2014, in May, our claims were 254,000, and the fee was 70,000. Yet in April, the claims were 691, and the fee was 69,000.
okay, but if you,
That doesn't say to me that the fee is based on the amount of claims.
No, it isn't.
because it's a rate times the number of contracts that you have, and that's how the fee is derived. So you can see.
But that year was Anthem, right? So the only year we have with Aetna
Right.
is about $53,000 a month. Just-
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct, yes. And what happens is, like, every month, the number of contracts that we have within our groups fluctuates. Up 1, down 2, up 1, down 3. I mean, it just goes up and down. People coming and going, both on the town and the board side. So, anyways. So, on the fund balance, if you look at on 6/30/14, we were at 2.5 million. The projected amount that I'm estimating we may need to use this fiscal year is close to $1.4 million. And what I did is I took the average of all the claims for the first 10 months, divided it by 10, which was about $693,000, and multiplied it by 2. And so if we do use that amount, our fund balance at the end of the fiscal year will be a little over $1.1 million. So if you look at the first line where I show, I did 3 columns, 12.2%, 19%, and 26%. The 19% is, I just did, an estimate of what I thought the renewal amount would be if we chose, if we went to a 19% renewal. So 12.2 would be that we're estimating $7.9 million in claims, 19% would be about 8.4 million. 26% would be, we're estimating we're going to have $9 million in claims, which if you look at what we have to date this year and where we may end up, we're, right in that ballpark. So the dollar increase from what our claims were this year, or the $7,086,000, at 12.2%, it would be $886,000. 19% were at 1.3 million, and 6% is close to $2 million over what our projected claims were at the beginning of this year. And then the next column is simply what I'm estimating our fund balance in the fund to be this year. The next line, estimated IBNR, is incurred but not reported. Historically, we've been running in the $400,000 range. Last fiscal year, on June 30th, the incurred but not reported was $477,000, I believe. So I would expect that it's going to be a higher number this year just because of the volume of claims that we've had.
And I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means.
Okay, so
Incurred but not reported. What is the 500,000?
So on June 30th, I go to the doctor. So my doctor doesn't submit to get paid for that until after June 30th. So whatever that group of claims is, that's the case. That's
You
what
have to budget for it because
the
of that-
IBNR
the data
is.
service was.
Exactly. And so then the next piece is the 20% corridor that I was talking about. So every year, your fund balance should be comprised of, at a minimum, the incurred but not reported estimate plus 20% of your expected claims in the subsequent year. So the next column, the next line, I show what we would be in a shortfall position of what would be classified as a healthy fund balance in our internal service health insurance fund. And we really need that $1 million that we're going to use at the end of this year to maintain our healthy fund balance within that fund. So anyway, and then I was looking at, okay, if we just say, you know what, we're going to take our chances and go at a 12.2% renewal, I would expect that we're going to have cash flow problems in the health insurance fund next year. We'll get to the point somewhere towards the end of the fiscal year that we're not going to have enough cash for our carrier to take out of the account. When I started here in 2007, we were there. We had no cash in that account. I mean, I was calling the Board of Ed saying, hey, look, I need you to send me your monthly contribution so that I have money to pay claims. So it's been, working to get the fund balance to where it really needs to be. And unfortunately, when you have a bad year, it really makes a difference.
So when we go, that just leads to my question. You talked about calling them to say, give me your monthly allowance. So what percentage is shared by the employee?
Well, it depends on the bargaining group. If you go back to the other
Or let me just, I guess, cut to the chase. If we're in a deficit situation, whatever that percentage is, do we go bill back to the employee, or because we didn't collect it, we?
No.
Well, the interesting, even before, pardon?
Sorry.
Oh, even before I came on board, there were 2 to 3 years where the Board of Selectmen did special appropriations, well, the boards, the town meeting, to fund the internal service fund because we didn't have enough money in it. And so we historically had a history of not properly funding it. So